All right, Darris, December 19th, 2007.
Yeah.
Darris Nichols Day in Radford, Virginia. As of course, going back to your hometown there, playing for West Virginia, had 23 points and a big win for the whole Mountaineers. What was it like going home and getting a chance to play there in front of, I'm sure, a whole lot of family and friends? The Dedman Center holds 3,200, and I saw that they squeezed 4,200 in there that night. So a lot of old folks
Yeah.
from the neighborhood there to see you.
Yeah, it was, it was special because I wasn't anticipating anything going down before the game. Um, so it was a surprise to me that they named it, Darris Nichols Day. So it's kind of odd because you're preparing for a game and you got nerves going, and then you stop the game. Well, not stop the game, you stop warm-ups. And they awarded me with the with the plaque and my own day in my own city. So it was special, but I definitely I wasn't prepared for that.
When your your college career ended, you went to Hungary to play for a year, and then
Yeah.
the injury ended your playing career. Were you? I guess what were the emotions of that for you? I assume
Yeah.
you always hope to play as long until the wheels fall off, and unfortunately,
Right.
they fell off there for you in a hurry. What were the emotions for you at that point when it was time to hang up the sneakers?
For me, because I hurt my left knee when I was in Hungary, and then so when I hurt that, I was like, okay, obviously, I have surgery. I'll come back. I'll be back at it. And then I started rehabbing in Morgantown, and then I hurt the other one, and so I had another surgery on my other knee, and then I just felt like I was struggling getting back to my old self, and my body was telling me something different than my mind was. So after you've been a competitor for all those years, you're never prepared for it to just stop like that. When you're a competitor, a basketball player, you think that you're going to go out on your own terms and retire how you want to. But for me, it was abruptly, and so that is something that you're not prepared for as an athlete for it to happen to you at an early age. So for me, it was hard. I was living on one of my teammates' couches, parking cars at a local hotel in Morgantown, just trying to make some money because the after the two knee injuries, I spent all the money I made overseas on those surgeries.
So when did the call come that, hey, we can find a way? Did I guess before we even get to that, was
Yeah.
coaching ever in your brain? I mean, did you think, hey, in 10 or 15 years when I'm done playing, I want to get into
Yeah.
this? Or when did the coaching bug first grab you?
I kind of had a at that time I kind of had a one-track mind. I thought I was just gonna play basketball for ever, and then figure out what I was gonna do next. But I come from a family of coaches. My dad coaches, obviously my brother coaches. So for me, I always wanted to do something to help kids. My major was sociology. I wanted to be a social worker. And once I got hurt, I was thinking, how can I help kids, but how can I stay involved in basketball? And when you put those two things together, that's what coaching is. And so, Bob Huggins, who I played for, he had a GA spot come open, and he was kind of like, why don't you get into coaching? I have a grad assistant spot. And I kind of debated it. I was kind of thinking maybe I should try and play again. And then, after going over there every day after work, seeing what was on the other side of coaching, um, I thought that would be a good career move for me.
What was your first impressions of walking in the door, and now you're not playing for Bob Huggins, but you're working for Bob Huggins?
My first impression was I was just thinking, okay, I'm on this side of it. I want to advance my career. I'm working for a future Hall of Fame guy. Let me spend my time trying to figure out as much about the game of basketball, and not only the game, the business of basketball. Um, Let me figure out as much as I can from this guy while I'm here.
Did you enjoy the work? Because I mean, everything we know about GA work,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
it's grunt work. I mean,
yeah,
it's you. I don't even know you're starting on the first floor. You're starting in the basement.
yeah.
Working your way toward the penthouse. What was the work like for you?
I enjoyed it because like it was different for me as a grad assistant because I had played there. So they had me on different tasks that I think normally they wouldn't have a grad assistant. So, obviously I have the relationships with with alumni, with the donors and things like that. So I felt like for me it was, yeah, it was, some of that grunt work, but at the same time, it was things that have helped me now in my career, just dealing with people that you come across as a head coach.
What was the biggest, I don't know, if there's one lesson you take away from Bob Huggins? Uh,
I would say how relentless he is. People don't understand that, in practice. Like he gets the most out of his guys, and I don't think people realize how great of a storyteller he is. So he's able to capture, the minds of student athletes through stories, and he's seen it all. He's been through a lot. So I would say the biggest thing I've taken from him is just the ability to tell stories.
so after your time as a GA, you go to Northern Kentucky,
Yeah.
and at the time they were still Division II. They're making the transition into Division I. How did you get there? Who'd you know? What sort of greased the skids
Yeah.
to getting you in the door there?
So when I was playing at West Virginia, our GA at the time was Kevin Chappelle. And so Kevin Chappelle played at NKU. And then so when he left um, West Virginia as a grad assistant, I took his spot as the grad assistant. And then he asked me, because they were transitioning from Division II to Division I, so they were able to create another assistant spot. So, he let me in on that, and he was like, it's going to open up next year. And so it's kind of crazy, this interview process that I did to get the job. At that time, Division II coaches, you could work anybody's camps. So the head coach, Dave Beazle at NKU, came to West Virginia and brought his son to the camp. So I was running the camp. And so I really basically had a week-long interview. So I interviewed for that job by, working the camp, and he was part of the camp, working the camp as well. So, that was my interview process.
Was it the most stressful camp? I mean, did you know, those things are usually,
Yeah,
everybody's working and you're trying to network and shake hands, but you got this carrot dangling out there for you.
a little. I mean, it was a little bit because that was my first interview, but it was in my element because that's what I'm used to is being on the floor. The harder interviews are the ones where you're behind the Zoom or
Right.
you in person with a suit, and those are harder than the first one that I had.
What do you remember about getting out on the road and being able to go recruit and maybe some of those early stories of
I
trying to
got
find,
I
get your sea legs under you?
Yeah, I got pictures of my first road trip, and I remember because obviously Northern Kentucky, that's the Midwest, and I'm from Virginia, so I know a lot of most of my ties were on the East Coast. So I remember driving out to Hoop Group up in Pennsylvania. We didn't have a big recruiting budget, so I took a cooler from the training room, loaded it up with ice, sandwich meat, drinks, all that stuff. Because when you're at a smaller school, your reimbursement, you get probably $3 for breakfast, maybe $10 for your lunch, and 12 for dinner. And I was going over that, so I said, you know what, I got to start packing my lunch. And then sometimes you go in these AU events, and back in the day, I was trying to sneak in as general admission, going in the bathroom, changing my shirt. So my first recruiting trip, it was like me just trying to figure it out and trying to figure out how to survive.
What makes a good recruiter in your mind?
I think the thing that makes a good recruiter is I think too many people attack situations without doing the background. You got to do your research before you call, before you go into it. So I think a lot of times is you ask yourself, why would this kid come to my school? And you have to figure out why, or what you think would be the reason and why. And then I think what makes a good recruiter is asking the right questions. Because if I call a high school coach and I ask them, hey, does so and so work hard? Usually they're gonna be like, yeah, he works hard, but working hard is relative. So I thought I worked hard until I heard Kobe Bryant stories.
Right.
So I always ask people for stories, and you always got to try to find people who don't have an angle on it. Or so you ask yourself, is this coach trying to help their player, or are they trying to actually help me? Um, so I think basically what makes a great recruiter is just doing your research. Um, because a lot of times, like it may be somebody that could push it over the top and seal the deal, or somebody that's behind the scenes that's hurting you in the recruiting and you don't even know that.
So much about recruiting. I mean, ultimately, it's the only thing about recruiting. To your
Right.
point, there is relationships, and especially at the mid major level when you're trying to get in early and hope that relationship you can get to the finish line. When you have put in the time,
Mhm.
oftentimes years with
Right.
the kid, and then the phone call comes, I'm coming. What
Yeah.
what is that moment like for you, wherever you may be in the world at the time when that phone call comes in?
You know what recruiting is? It's kind of like games. You're excited, but it's more so a sigh of relief, and then you got to move on and you got to try to get some more of them. So it's kind of like you win a game. It's like you win a game on Tuesday, and then you have a game on Thursday. You're like, it's a sigh of relief more than you're excited.
Right.
So for me, I think you're always planting seeds. A lot of times where I've been recruiting, a lot of people have told me, man, you're wasting your time, you're doing this, but that's what recruiting is. And, you think about some of the guys that we've signed here, you know, you got the kid, from Villanova, Brian Antoine. I recruited him when he was in 8th grade, when I was in Florida. And, with the transfer portal, you never know, when you may not get the kid the first time. Now you may get him the second or third time.
Right.
So I just look at it like this. I'm recruiting a whole bunch of 2023 prospects. Some of them may be 2024, some of them may be 2025 due to the transfer portal. So really, in recruiting, you're just planting seeds.
After 2 years at Northern Kentucky, you go to Wofford for the year. What was the impetus for I got to go? What was about? I mean, obviously, you're playing for a guy there, or coaching with a guy there. And Mike Young had been there a while and had been established, but just why the move at that point?
I think a lot of times when you transition from Division 2 to Division 1, a lot of times there's turnover. And so when I was at Northern Kentucky, we got a new president. I think we got a new AD too, and I kind of felt that during that transition, I don't know, and we did a really good job. I don't know how long we would have survived. And then, getting the call from Mike Young. He's from my hometown. He's from Radford. I've known him. My brother played for him. It was a no-brainer decision. So I was excited to, make that move, get closer to home, and work for somebody that I've admired through my life growing up in Radford.
And obviously, Bob Huggins has coached forever, but he's been at different places. But when you go to work for somebody, I mean, when you started working for him there at WVU, he hadn't been there that long. Mike Young had been at Wofford for a
Right.
decade, I guess, at that point. What's it like going into a program there and working for somebody he's established, he knows what he wants, and he's got the program. You can never win enough, but he's sort of got the foundation of where he wants to do when you're moving into to try to fit into that puzzle.
Yeah, it was different because like they had, he had a lot of success before I got there, and then he had a few years. I think it was like maybe 2 years where they weren't doing as well. So we came in there, we had a whole new staff that year, and we ended up winning the league. Um, so for me, it was just the chance to learn something new from somebody different and somebody who's had a lot of success. So I felt that was great for me in my career, even though I was only there for like 6, 7 months. That was a great move for me because I learned so much from Coach Young.
What's it like to make the NCAA tournament as an assistant? Like you're
Yeah.
you're in the
Yeah.
in the room there to get him there. What's that like for you?
For me, it was rewarding because we're from where we started. We were preseason picked to finish like 11th in the league that year, and then we ended up winning and going on. But being at that level where you're in a one bid league, that is the most nerve-wracking I've been in coaching, because you think about it, it's so hard to get to the NCAA tournament from a one bid league. Like if your sixth or seventh man rolls his ankle or even eats a bad piece of chicken before the game, you may you may
Right.
not make the tournament. So it was just nerve-wracking going into every game, and it was lining up because every team that we lost to in the regular season got beat the round before we played them. And so, we struggled with Chattanooga, when we struggled with Davidson, and those two teams lost before, we were supposed to get to them. And started thinking, I said, like, I think we're getting a little lucky too now. So we got to take advantage of this.
1 year, your point, less than a year, and then you're off to Louisiana Tech.
Yeah.
I guess from what I saw, uh, Derek Jones left for Vanderbilt. You
Yeah.
interviewed but didn't get the job. Then it went to Jordan Mincy, and then 2 weeks later, Isaac Brown goes to Wichita, and then the phone rings again, and now it's your turn to
Yeah.
go to Tech.
So
How
yeah,
did that all work for you?
it's crazy how this all happened. I'm gonna try to tie it in together. So when I was playing at West Virginia, we used to scrimmage Kent State every year. John Beilein was there, and I think Geno Ford was the head coach, and so Jordan Mincy was on that team. So I got to meet him and develop a relationship with him in college. So that relationship goes back to sophomore, junior in college. So then when I'm in Northern Kentucky, I'm out recruiting at a junior college event in Hutchinson, Kansas. And I sit down and I eat with Bill Armstrong, who's an assistant at Ole Miss, who I've known because of Bob Huggins' connection, worked for Andy Kennedy. So then the guy joins us to eat dinner, and it's Mike White. He had just recently got the head coach job at Louisiana Tech. And so we ate dinner, and after when I meet people, I try to write a handwritten note to them. So this was when I was, at a Division two. So then you fast forward a few years, that opportunity comes about. And then so Jordan had already been hired by Coach White at Louisiana Tech. So then they had a spot open. So then Mike White is asking Jordan, who should I hire? And he threw my name out. And then he called Bill Armstrong. He threw my name out. So all of that stuff, and I always say plant seeds, it goes back to those days. And that's how I ended up there.
Did the handwritten letter come into play?
It didn't hurt. it didn't. It didn't hurt. Yeah.
He, Mike White, when he called you an old soul,
Mm-hmm.
do you agree with that assessment?
I would agree with that. He always says that, and I talked to him the other day. But I don't know, just growing up in a small town, you always hang out. You get caught hanging out with older people. Growing up, you listen to older people. You're around them. They take care of you. So for me, it's just, I don't know. It's what I've been exposed to.
1 year again, and then Mike White gets the job at Florida and takes you with him. Before we get to Florida, I mean, you've now, short time at WVU, short time at Northern Kentucky, 1 year at Wofford, 1 year at Tech. Now you're at Florida. Just from a personal standpoint, is that, and I know there's that professional drive and that ladder you're trying to climb, but is it unsettling to just have, I mean, I'm assuming you're doing a lot of renting and not much buying at this point in your life.
For me, and it's crazy because I like every move I've made, I wasn't looking to move. It just happened. Um, you know, Northern Kentucky, I was there. I actually turned down a job in Northern Kentucky to stay, and then the Wofford job came about. So for me, it's kind of unsettling, but at the same time, it's exciting because I always think about this, like, you never know where the basketball will take you in life. And so that's really how I've lived my life, with basketball is, you use basketball. So for me, all those moves, and a lot of people outside looking in, they say things like, man, you moved up so fast. I want to be like you. And I always tell them, well, you didn't see me when I was living on the couch. So I don't feel like it's moved up fast. I feel like I've just been putting my head down working.
What's the biggest difference about recruiting in the SEC as opposed to recruiting in the SoCon
Big South.
or Big South? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
I think the biggest difference at that level is that you recruit so many more years in advance. You know, when I was at that level, I used to start recruiting guys eighth, ninth grade, fellow relationships, and you recruiting guys 4 or 5 years, and you still may not get them. And so now it's a situation where I think the transfer portal has changed some of that, but also the level has changed that because I may be recruiting a guy who I see this spring, and he may blow up the summer, and now he's a high major player.
Right.
And so, I feel like, I had to change my strategy on recruiting. I recruit a lot of seniors, knowing that they're probably going to be transfers. And so recruiting in the SEC, I mean, you're going up against, some Hall of Fame guys. And so for us, we had to do more. For example, like if John Calipari comes in the gym one time and I come in the gym and I see them taking, all the kids are coming up taking pictures with Calipari and all that stuff, the appeal of Calipari been there is more so is way more appealing than me coming to the gym. So I know I have to come in more. I have to show my face more than a guy like him because he's gonna leave a lasting impression if he comes in that gym one time.
But when you go from Wofford to Louisiana Tech to Florida, and you're the waters are deeper. I mean, right? I mean, and I guess going back to the uneasiness. I mean, does it take some time for you to to feel comfortable, sort of in your own skin, in that, hey, now I am recruiting against the John Caliparis of the world, or did you feel naturally comfortable in that, or did you kind of have to figure that part out?
I felt like I don't know if the waters are deeper. I think I went from swimming with dolphins to swimming with sharks. So I think the water was the same. It was what was in the water. Um, so I think, a funny story. So when we first get the job, um, we're all living in a hotel. And so coach got the job, I think it was May. It was kind of late. So, the NBA draft's in June. So we're at some local burger joint, our whole staff, we're watching the NBA draft and we're calling all these recruits and we're saying, hey, so and so, we love your game. And these were all ESPN top 150 guys, because that's what you have to get at that level, some of the top guys. And so we're calling all rising seniors. And, we're hearing their list. We got LSU on there, we got Kentucky, we got everybody on there, dude. And so we're watching the draft, and I say, Coach, I think we need to change our recruiting strategy. He's like, why? I said, we're calling these kids, and they've already been recruited by the Blue Bloods and all these guys for the last 3-4 years before we even got here. And I said, look, we're sitting at this burger joint, and John Calipari is there. He's there. And he's like, what do you mean he's there? It's like, he's at the draft. He's bouncing from 5 or 6 different tables. And we're calling these kids, and they are watching the NBA draft like we are, and they see him there. I said, so we need to jump back a few years and start recruiting, the Trey Mans of the world, the Scotty Lewises of the world, the Keontae Johnsons, those guys. And then we'll have a chance in year 2, year 3 to be really good.
How did that conversation go? I mean, was he accepting of that thought process?
Yeah, he said, I mean, you got a good point. I think we're behind. I was like, yeah, I think we are. I think we are behind, but we figured it out. And I give Coach White a lot of credit because you think of my career and Jordan Mincy's career, and he told us when he hired us, he said, I'm hiring you two guys with confidence. If I get a high major job in 6 to 7 months, I want to hire guys I'm comfortable with taking to the high major level. So we get, we're working out in the spring or whatever, and then we get a call, and coach is like, I've accepted a job at Florida. So me and Mincy, we go in there, and coach is kind of like, Mincy's like, hey, why don't you ask him if he's gonna bring us? And I said, nah, you ask him. I'm not asking him. He said, you remember he told us he was going to bring us. I said, okay, well, let's go in there. So we go in there. We say, "Hey, coach, you said when you hired us, he was going to bring us with you. You remember that?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And then so me and Missy looked. He's like, "I mean, is he going to bring us as assistants? Like, are we going like in this role?" And he was like, "Yeah, like why wouldn't I?" And he's like, "Okay, well, 'cause he was kind of he's kind of nervous that he's going to bump us down in the support role and hire some guys who had done it before. But he kept his word, and we appreciate him for that."
You worked for Bob Huggins, you worked for Mike Young, guys that had been around the block, and Mike White's a younger guy.
Right,
And what, just in terms of what you were able, you learn from everybody
right.
and all time, but what did you learn that was maybe different from him with sort of a younger perspective on the business?
I learned from him the ability to demonstrate is even more powerful than it's ever been. I think we have a generation of student athletes that's more visual, and I always say this. I mean, look at their social media platforms. They don't like Twitter as much as they like Instagram because it's more visual. So I think the ability to demonstrate as a young coach goes a long way when you can get out there and say, okay, this is what we're doing and show them. So that's the biggest thing I learned from him.
6 years there, and I guess, did you feel uh, how was it different for you, just in terms of you weren't hopping? Do you kind of
Yeah,
got into a spot that, hey, we can put some roots down here
yeah.
and try to grow this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed my time at Gainesville. Like, I loved the university. I loved the city. I didn't know how long I would be there. I had some opportunities to leave, and I didn't leave. I interviewed for some assistant jobs. I got offered a few, and I've always told myself I don't. I've never chose schools. I've always chose people. So some of the jobs that were offered to me, like I didn't it wasn't the right fit in terms of people for me. And that's why I've been happy in this profession because I've always worked for good people.
April of 2021, going home to
Yeah.
Radford. I guess firstly, when did Radford decide? And you born and raised there, played your high school ball there, family there. I mean, that is an obvious pull there.
Right.
When uh, was there a time prior to the spring of 21 where you started getting some tug in your heart that I think I'm ready to be a head coach?
um you never say, okay, I mean, you say you're ready.
Right.
Everybody says they're ready, like, oh yeah, I'm ready. But it, it's more so when other people think you're ready. You know what I'm saying? Because I interviewed for 7 head coaching jobs before I got this one.
Seven,
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of
seven.
people. Yeah, 7. So I mean, so uh, it was one of those things, and every time, Mike Jones, he did a really good job here, so his name was always up for jobs and interviews, and so every time it happened, my name would pop up, and so I didn't know when he would leave, but then when it happened, I said, okay, it's time to fill up my voicemail. I'm gonna have a whole bunch of people calling. So, so yeah, that's what happened.
Let's go back to those 7 interviews. What did
Yeah,
you learn about yourself, and maybe even just whether it's selling yourself,
yeah,
selling a vision, selling what did you, there's 1,000 reasons why people don't get jobs, but
right.
what was sort of the productive takeaway that you were able to walk out of there with after those
I,
7?
I think the productive takeaway for me was that I wasn't like when you're in a great situation and you're working for great people, you don't like if you don't get those opportunities, you're okay. So a lot of people may be job chasing because of the situation they're in, but I was in a great situation. So for me, if I didn't get the job, I was fine. So I mean, the biggest thing I learned from myself is that I have to just continue to work and get better. And the one thing that you see sometimes people in this business do is when they don't get the opportunities they want, they become bitter and then they never get another chance. And so for me, it's like I was happy for it. So that's what I learned. And what I said earlier, I learned that you always choose people because if Coach White wasn't a great person to work for, then I think it would have been harder on me of not getting those opportunities.
So when Radford's finally open and you go up there, and I mean, was this a, I hate to say a foregone conclusion because until it's official, it's never official, but you had to feel really good about going back there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Just when, what is it like? We hear a lot about guys going back and coaching maybe at their college alma mater, let
yeah.
alone their high school alma mater, and going home.
Right.
What was there any hesitancy for you at all about some sort of maybe manufactured pressure about, I'm going home and this could be different, or was this just a, I am going, if I can get this job 1,000%, I'm all in?
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I felt about it. Um, just growing up in Radford and growing up going to the summer camps and looking up to the guys that played here in the past. Like for me, it was a no-brainer. And there are obstacles of being at home. There's also good things about being home, and I think in this business, thing you sacrifice the most is family. And so I think when you're around family in this element, it's a good thing. So, I can pop in at my mom and dad's house, anytime I want. And, I've never been in that situation before. And but on the flip side, it's one of those things where a lot of times your family doesn't see how much goes into college athletics. So then when it's up close and personal, they start to understand, okay, you can't make everybody's birthday party, or you can't um, you know, you're not a your availability is not always where other people will want it to be. So that was a struggle at first, but it's a blessing to get your first head coaching job in your hometown.
The other 7 times where you didn't get it,
Yeah,
if you didn't get it, you were okay because you had a
yeah,
place to go back. Was
right.
this one going to be different? If you didn't get this one, would this one have stung a little different than maybe the first 7?
Probably, yeah, probably, yeah, probably because I mean it's just I don't know. It's a great situation for me. It's not only a great situation for me, it's a great situation I think for my players, because a lot of the times like I can share stories about how I grew up and who's helped me in this community, and then I still see a lot of people who've helped me and continue to help me to this day. And those are the same people that are going to come across my guys. So I think it would have been a little different. And even I told one of my mentors, even the press conference, if I got one of those other 7 jobs, not to say they weren't good jobs, I don't know if it would have been as authentic as it was.
What do you remember about press conference day?
Nervous,
Yeah.
nervous because I think I flew in the same day as the press conference. Yeah, I flew in the same day. And then, I was ripping and running, you know, media obligations, all that stuff in it. And it's funny now because whenever one of my friends gets a job, I don't call them until after the press conference because I already know what they're going through.
Right.
I already know that's the biggest thing on your mind is that press conference. So I just say, hey man, congrats. I'm gonna hit you after your press conference.
Well, Darris, last question that we ask everybody, for any young coaches, those early 20 somethings that are trying to get into this crazy business and one day ultimately want to lead their own Division I program. What is
Yeah.
what is the one piece of advice that you would pass on to them?
I always ask them why they want to do it. Like what is the reasoning why you want to run your own program or why you want to get into coaching. Um, and then once they give me the answer, then I can I can kind of help them. But I would say the biggest thing is just like if you really want to be successful in this business, I mean you you have to value relationships, and that's what anything we do. But I just think relationships are huge, not only with the athletes, but with coaching staffs, with administration, and all of that. So I think I wouldn't be in the situation right now if I didn't develop the relationships that I did, even at an early age. You got to think my AD's from Radford. His mom taught me in elementary school. his uncle taught me in middle. His uncle was my middle school principal, and his brother was my high school principal. So if I didn't have those relationships, would I don't I not I wouldn't be here. So that's what I would say.